Well, welcome to another old steam-powered machine shop from the winter hideout in Florida. We got the shop winterized and put away for this winter break, and be back in the spring. But I kind of miss putting up a video once in a while and discussing things with you guys. So I thought I would put up probably what will be the only video I will ever do of flashbacks into the older videos that I've done. Some of them now are 5 years old, and some of my favorite projects, things that I like doing in the shop, things that turned out fairly well. Also I wanted to talk about two things that viewers have brought up along the way. One is, am I tremendously worried about the dangerous belts that are flying around in the shop, and would I ever get caught in them, and you know, what do you think the chances are of surviving what some viewers have called the most dangerous shop in America? And it can be, it could be, but we'll talk about this in length. Also, I want to address a question that a viewer had, several viewers have had, about the history of the building that my shop is located in. How it came about, and what the story is there. So we'll get started on the videos, and we'll talk to you as we go along with a voiceover. Thanks a lot for watching. I appreciate all your support.
This is the first thing I've done on the lathe with the big engine running line jet. And it's just amazing how quiet it is. All you can hear is the belt waves when they hit the pulleys, a little click or a little rattle now and then. The belt rubs against the shift wheel. It's take a little getting used to. hear all the gears and the waves. You hear the tool being cut. Bore this is an 1.5 inches plus about 5,000 this
Well, we've been going along here for about an hour. Taking two passes, probably do it in one pass, but I think after we do the There, as you can see, is the first tooth. Working out pretty good. 43 more to go. Okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this building that my shop is in. It was always a mystery to me why this barn was built the way it was. It was built incredibly heavy, all clear inside with no posts, no inside support like barns usually have. The ceilings and the walls were all tongue and grooved. The floor was planked very heavily. It had house windows in it and quite an ornate staircase that went to a second floor that actually had one corner of the second floor finished off for, I always supposed it was seasonal workers. A worker or two could live up there, but never really knew until I did some local research on it, and I found out that it was actually to start the story off, there was a hotel built in 1798, which was really just the first frame building that was ever built in this town. And it was made into a hotel, which in those days was like a tavern, a general store, and stagecoach station, and then just general purpose business. And that was built in 1798 by a guy named Slauson, and this young man came along. The name was Otis Lincoln. He married his daughter and bought the
bought the hotel. Well, and Otis really went to town on it and doubled the size of it by moving a house next door up to it and connected it to it, and they built the porches and they put the columns on and everything. You can see it was kind of cleverly done and made quite a large building out of it. And it served for quite a few years. Well, Otis ran out of room for his family and decided he was going to build a house. So across the street, he built this huge brick house. It was built in 1831. And we really don't know what the house looked like originally, because its subsequent owners had done a lot of remodeling to it and really fancied it up, built a porch on 3 sides of it, and did a lot of work on it. That's the house that I grew up in as a kid. And on that property, on that side of the street, was this barn. And according to the local newspaper office, that also published in 1880 a very, very detailed account of every building in this town, when it was built, who it was built by, who lived there, what happened to it, all that kind of stuff. They accounted that this barn was actually moved from two blocks north of the hotel, where it was built to be not a tavern, a distillery, where they made their own whiskey and vinegar and apple cider and all that kind of stuff. And they actually moved it sometime around maybe 1850 to its present location and put it up against a bigger barn, or else built the bigger barn on the end of it that you can see in this last picture. So it's pretty clever the way they did this stuff back then, and that explains some of the building as to why it's built so heavy as it is. The floor is actually, the main beam that runs down through the middle of the floor is probably 16 inches square, white oak, and then running off each side of it are the floor joists, and they're like 3 by 12s notched and set in there, and then it's planked with 2.5 or 2-inch hemlock over the top of that. And the reason I know that is I had to take up part of the floor to fix the threshold on the back door that had gone bad a few years ago before I started building the machine shop in there. But I've had some type of a shop business in this building for over 50 years, and it served me well, and I have been quite successful at taking care of it. On this last picture you can see this is taken from the main street across the village green, and you can see my barn is just to the left of that flagpole. And this picture was taken about 1904, because the house just to the right of it was just freshly built, and the library that was built in front of it or beside it is not there. So I know that's what the date of that picture is. And you can see, if you look really carefully with a magnifying glass on the original photo there, you can see that the wood shingles on my shop are not in that great a shape. It's starting to really show some wear and tear at that date. So I'm pretty sure this barn dates back to the somewhere prior to the Civil War. I want to show you how this sleeve job is going along before I get too far into it. This is a 5.5-inch bore international hit and miss engine. This is the sleeve. It's the bore size on the original bore size is 5.5, and this is a little less than 5.5 inside diameter, and it's 1/8 inch thick.
So we got plenty of material to work with here. This is pretty much up to the end of the size ranges in the Melling catalog. It was available from Melling as a regular automotive supplier. And I've got the ruler through here, and it's 20 inches from one end to the other. There's a 3-inch deep relief cut in the top end of the cylinder, which is up here toward the boring bar. It's probably 3/8 of an inch bigger bore, and then it's got a 45-degree angle chamfer that comes down to the cylinder. So that 3 inches there from the 20 is 17, but I'm not going to bore it all the way through. I'm going to leave about a 1/2 inch step for it to rest against. This sleeve is 20 and a half, so I'm going to have to trim the sleeve and put a 45-degree angle inside chamfer on it before I press it in. You might be able to see the relief here. This is 3 inches up here. Relief. Well, the Morris engine had no base because I believe the engine frame was bolted directly to the equipment that it was on. The engines that Morris made that were built to be just stationary engines had a tapered cast iron base, and so I'm trying to replicate something similar to that out of 3/8 mild steel plate, and I'm welding it up. Flipped it over, straightening up the bottom. Distortion. The welds are rounded off here. The corners are rounded off. Make it look a little like a casting. And I'll set the engine on here and mark the holes. Drill and tap them 5/8 course. I may put a lock nut on the bottom, but I don't think it'll be necessary. Well, you know, most people consider my steam-powered shop to be a pretty dangerous place. And I suppose it could be. Any machine shop is easy to get hurt if you're not paying attention. And I've been, through the years, pretty accident-free, and of course my shop doesn't have to meet anybody's safety standards but my own. And so I'll just say a few words about that. Now that you kind of have to divide the shop into two areas, like the steam and the belts, and then the old machinery in general. And down here in Florida, I can kind of demonstrate on this little lathe a few little rules that I made up myself, or that have been handed down to me, or that I've discovered, and it's kept me out of trouble through the years. So we'll have a go here. First rule that I have in the back of my mind is don't put your hands where you can't see them. This is something my dad told me. And I don't care whether you're running a sawmill or a lathe or a milling machine or a drill press or whatever it is. It's a very good habit to get into, not putting your hands where you can't see them. I'm sure that you guys can come up with a lot of safety tips too, but the thing that I've always thought is that it's not the big things that get you. It's like riding a motorcycle, like motocross. It's not that big jump, that big mountainous flyover jump that you're going to get hurt on, because it's obvious and you're paying attention and you're lined up with it and you're focused. It's that little rut down at the end of the straightaway that you hardly notice that's going to take you down. And it's the same way with machinery, I think. One thing that always unnerved me, and every time I do it, I think about the possibilities, is when you have a chuck with something chucked up in it like this, where the jaws hang out. You got an area here where the machine is turning in this direction that could suck your hand into it and do some real damage to you. So I always give that a big margin of room when I'm working around it, and I'm extra careful about that. Another thing that kind of unnerves me when I watch somebody do it is if you have to file your piece in the lathe, it's better not to file it like this. It's better to file it left-handed like this. I know you don't have quite the control if you're right-handed, but this way your hands are away from the chuck. A thing that really gives me the creeps on a milling machine is thinking about keeping away from the in-feeding side of the cutter. The cutter turns this way. Don't put a chip brush, don't put your hand, don't wipe anything off, don't put your oil can, nothing on this side of the cutter, because it'll pull it right into the cut. The same thing on a vertical milling machine. Keep away from the side that's going into the cut. Something I learned myself: if you're drilling something tubular, like you're drilling a hole into a piece of pipe, or like I used to drill pistons on dirt bikes to put reed valves in them. When you're drilling a hole through something circular like this, it's curved on the inside. When the drill breaks through into that curved surface, it will grab the drill like you can't believe. And you need to make sure you put your clamp on your V-blocks and clamp your V-block down, or clamp your piece down or something, because it'll really catch in there. Or even if you're drilling into a piece of exhaust pipe, it'll catch a lot more than you think it will. Another thing that can cause you grief is you're trying to polish a piece of something with an emery cloth or a piece of sandpaper. Don't double it over like this. I see people do that all the time, and I catch myself doing it once in a while. But you get this thing really wound up, that could catch in there and wind up your paper and catch your thumb in there and wind you up in it before you even know what's happening. The proper way to do it is like this, or better yet, strip your emery like this, without any chance of it getting wound up on itself and pulling your finger into it. Well, there's a couple little safety tips for you, and I'm sure that you guys have got hundreds of them yourself. That's what the comment section is for if you want to discuss it. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to be at the Flywheelers in another week or so. Hope to see you over there on Saturday at the machine shop.